All right. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Joe Novak. I'm the Southeastern Market Manager with Saverglass. I'm based in South Carolina and cover the Texas market. I'm also going to be the moderator for today's panel. So welcome and thanks very much for being here with us today. Panel today will be talking about how you can successfully design and transition from stock to bespoke and custom packaging in order to elevate your brand and capture your intended market and audience. Some of our panel members today, we have Mike Niehaus, who's the sales director with Saverglass. He's located in our Kentucky office and focuses on building key accounts. We have Joy Hallman back with us today. She is the Chief Growth Officer with Stranger & Stranger. She's based in the San Francisco office, and we're very lucky to have her again with us this year. And lastly, I'd like to introduce John Newton, who is the Director of Business Development at Castle & Key Distillery. He's located on-site and is in charge of strategic growth and contract services. Thank you very much for being with us here today. Before we get started, I just wanted to do a quick survey of the audience. So if you're in the process of starting a new distillery or maybe a new brand, could you please clap just one time? All right. And if you're maybe in the process of rebranding or maybe launching a new product, maybe changing your packaging, could you please clap twice? And if you are just interested in the conversation today and want to spend some time with us, could you please clap 3 times? All right. Thank you very much. We'll have some time at the end for questions, so we can go ahead and get started. I think a great place to start would be the background of the Castle & Key bottle. So, John, would you be able to kind of take us through the original design and versus what we see on the shelves today?
Yeah, so as you look at the whole portfolio kind of up here in front of us, I think this is a really good example of the evolution of the Castle & Key brand, starting with what is on the screen there today. So this is, just a little narrative. Castle & Key, independently owned craft distillery down in Millville, Kentucky. So we never really had necessarily, it was never this intent that we were going to be bespoke glass from the start. The evolution of Castle & Key was absolutely this kind of snowball process where we grew from the idea of a single pot still doing 1 to 2 barrels a day. Well, then we were going to scale a little bit upon that to the point at which we're doing about 38,000 barrels annually. And so we definitely had some evolution within our overall marketing approach, what our commercial strategy was going to be, and then, of course, what our packaging strategy was going to be. So when we first got to the point of bringing product to market, we started off with that, what we call the restoration release package. This was supposed to be a kind of a temporary release, a limited release, have it out there, sell it out, do a single batch, sell it out. We'd be done with this within the first 2 or 3 months. Well, fast forward 2 years down the line, we're still working on what our final commercial plan was going to be, but thank goodness we did wait, because I think it helped us really solidify who we were as a brand, where we wanted to go, helping us define what our BHAG was going to be, and helping us better identify who our eventual consumer was going to be as well. And so through that process, we kind of came across the finding, the understanding that if we wanted to be this future 100,000 9-liter case brand, if we wanted to be a brand that was recognized around the world for inspiring people through an experience with our spirits, then we needed to have packaging that was going to reflect that. And that's when we reached out to find the right set of partners to help us achieve that vision, because I'll tell you, we did absolutely not have the skill set internally to be able to make that happen. And through the partnerships with Stranger & Stranger, they really helped us suss out who we were and how to make the brand visually come to life.
Hi, I'm Joy with Stranger. It's a pleasure to be with y'all. It's actually my home state, so I'm really happy to be on home turf here. I'm with Stranger & Stranger. Stranger is a design agency, and we specialize in alcohol beverage. So we're located in London, New York, San Francisco. We've been around for 30 years. And quite simply, we make brands that sell themselves. And for us, strengths are the job, not the add-on. And as you can imagine, over 30 years, we've done over 7,000 projects, every style of project, underdogs, big dogs, you name it. And the way we, think about brands is, we're just obsessed with how does your brand show up in the real world? Not in some slide marked final V9, but we're really interested in those brands that make consumers stop on shelf, pause, pick up that bottle, and put it in the basket. And we really get that around to that way with brands. And we generally ask two questions, what do you want to do with this? And what do you stand for? Those 2 questions we need to know. But in terms of our process, we really hang our hat on 3 things. And the first is insight, instinct, and experience. One keeps us sharp, one keeps us strange, and the other one tells us when to trust the other. Secondly, I think it's at Stranger, we're strategists, designers, and producers all in one house. So we really understand not just material, but like symbiotics of consumers. And then lastly, we don't just want to be different. We want differentiation. We don't want to chase any fads. We want to tell a true story. We want to tell your story. And so, we've done every type, but when it comes to Castle and Key, like I said, we say, what do you stand for? What do you want to do? Some people just want to have a little baby project and let it be a heritage. And some people want to grow and sell it and have a massive exit. That all informs year 1, year 2, year 10 of your brand. And when we spoke with Castle and Key, they kept coming up with courage, the courage of our convictions and the courage to restore a historic site and make it a new distillery, which was Castle and Key. And we like to break down things with our clients into like key themes. And for us, Castle and Key really embodied this sense of seasonality, mastery, and authenticity. And so they wanted to like embrace the variability of nature. Every iteration of a whiskey might be ever so slightly different. You should embrace that. There's not necessarily the level of predictability and consistency. Secondly, mastery. There's this idea of this, they were just so precise and so beautifully poured so much passion into the process. So we were like, oh, there's this level of mastery to what they do. So inspiring process and vision for distillation. And lastly, authentic, genuine and honest sourcing. But how do you bottle a sense of a place and a process? That seems almost impossible. And so this is what we do. We go and we do our little bit of research, and Castle and Key was just rich with inspiration. You go to the spring house and you're like, oh my goodness, that ceiling is gorgeous. Or you go see the old ruins and you're like, this castle, it just feels like many, many people have lived here. So we love to look under every nook and cranny and kind of draw what are those key things that only your brand can talk about. There's a lot of brands out there that you could swap names and it could be exactly the same thing. But, this is uniquely Castle and Key's bottle. And so how we go about things is we start tearing apart and we show mood boards to show a sense of style and sense of place. And it was really important to Castle and Key that every label would kind of showcase a different product, and it would be really varied. So each label was almost like a chapter in the book of Castle and Key. And we loved that because, it allowed you to push and pull and tell a story that was quite unique. And what was really different was that the fact that when we do that, you can create desirability. And at the time, it was a really very conservative competitor market. And so by just doing this one small thing, it was really differentiating Castle and Key from the rest. And so you can tell we wanted to tell something that was story, but in craft, but elevate the touch points and then have these really disruptive and artistic labels, but then marry it with these modern touches and this idea old, but make it new. And so this is a very first visual we ever showed the client. And you can tell, you see how we got inspiration from the spring house. We brought that in and it's still here on the top of the Castle and Key's closure. And as we work our way down the pack, we found these really cool brass barrels. We thought, that's a really unique, iconic thing that we can weave within the packaging and then bring that iconic keyhole into the neckband. And then taking inspiration from the castle itself and the architecture and bringing that into the bottle. And then telling an evocative story that's disruptive through the label. And then bringing that seasonality, that hallmark that made them different. And saying, let's put vintages. You put vintages on wine labels, but let's put vintages on our spirits. Something that was quite different. So you see how that all comes to life, how we're telling touch points of the story. We're not telling it directly, right? Like it's about having moments with the consumer that tells the story. And then you can see how that comes to life and how you could tell different iterations. Obviously, these aren't the final labels, but they're there to sell the idea, which was cracked from the very beginning. And this is that very first iteration. Y'all can come up here later and hold and look at them if you'd like. But you can see then how that continues to unfold and tell more of that story than to the full portfolio. So that's a bit about how the design came to life.
Yeah, I think that's such a great point. Of so interesting how you had to incorporate all those different components of the brand. I'm sure when it came time to launching the brand and actually having it produced, there were probably some challenges that you faced. So,
Always.
John, do you want to kind of expand on some of those challenges you might have encountered initially?
Yes. And so, I think there were really 3, maybe 4 categories where we really ran into some hurdles, right? All the challenges in the distilling world, these are opportunities to grow, to learn, to be better. So the first one was Cask Key really does have a pretty complex brand story. So just being able to figure out what matters and what can we convey with packaging. Is it the historic aspect of Cask Key? Is it the fact that it is a literal castle? Is it the more modern foundation? Is it the legacy contributions of Colonel E.H. Taylor? How do you quite literally package this up to when that first time consumer walking the aisle stores in your package store is going to pick it up for the first time, or what's going to make it stand out on the back bar? So that was kind of the first challenge. Unfortunately, once again, this was to the credit of Stranger & Stranger. They were really the ones that helped us kind of will this down, starting with this block to figuring out what the final product should be. And I think they created something that really has the ability to be quite iconic. Next is, if this is a pretty complex design. And so I would say that kind of moving over, once again, thankful for good partners, in full honesty and transparency, Savor was definitely not the first frog that we kissed. But fortunately, Mike, you just turned out to be our prince. So, we appreciate you there. But it is a very unique package. There is a lot of complexity to it. The embossing that goes into it. It is a heavy, 900 gram weight bottle. So unique headspace, all sorts of things that were challenging in actually bringing this design to life. And then I think even the transition of going from a 2D design on paper to what a 3D design looks like in real life. And quite honestly, we did not get this right from the start. When we first brought our package to market, we did not have the only Cask Key branding would have been on the neckband and then also on the glass base. And so you can kind of see on here, all of the packaging that has the gold Cask Key stripe that was added after the fact. And it was that initial transition with just the neckband and the foot badge, where we were really losing a lot of the equity that we had initially built within Cask Key. So, you kind of see once again the evolutions of the package along the way. And then, I think the final really challenge for us was we were such novices getting into this industry and understanding realistic lead times. I would even say for true veterans, professionals out there, take whatever lead time you think you're going to have and go ahead and add 20% to it. Like I'd said initially too, we started off with this very ambitious goal that we were going to be transitioning from our Boston round to bespoke glass in about 6 months. And fast forward 2 years later, here we finally are. But I think ultimately the question is it worth it? And I would say absolutely. For where we ultimately want to go, I do think that we've created something that has the ability to stand out and is going to encourage a first-time purchase in a way that just living in that traditional standard Boston round craft bottle would never have the ability to achieve.
Mike, do you want to share your thoughts from the glass manufacturers?
Yeah, we were brought in with Cask Key, and we weren't, as John mentioned, we weren't the first pick. They went down another road, but that other supplier really struggled with the bottle, and we were able to pick it up. We were on a really tight timeline, and we got the bottle developed. And as John and Joy mentioned, you look at the designs, a lot going on with the bottle. There's debossments, there's embossments, and we'll pass the bottles around so everybody can see it. In the knurling of the bottle, we have their logo and also the lettering. So very complex bottle in the shape. And when they brought us in on the package, this is what we as a glassmaker loved to work with. This custom bespoke, John hit on it. It's an iconic design. when you're in the bar tonight and you're looking at the silhouette of the bar, and when you can pick out your brand out there and say, that's the silhouette of Castle and Key or XYZ brand, that's what you want. So if you're starting a new brand, highly recommend to you, make your bottle stand out. It's so easy to come up with a shape. And this is I know it's a major investment at first, especially when you're first starting out. Say, I don't have the money for $30,000 or $40,000 plus for a set of molds. But if you think of it in the grand scheme of things, the investment that Castle and Key made here by bringing Stranger and Stranger in and coming up with this iconic design, it's paid off in spades. The brand is grown as you see all the line extensions. They started out with a gin and a vodka. Now they've got a wheated bourbon, a rye. They've done very well with the packaging. One of the things with their packaging, you can see they put this metal medallion on the neck and the metal base plate. But they were at a tough price point on vodka and gin. So they realized to compete in the market, they had to take some of the money out of their package. This is after their brand's been launched. So all their vodkas and gins, like you see here with the orange and yellow label, had the metal medallion. But what they're doing now is they've kind of backed off the packaging a little bit. And what we did is the metal base plate that you see here on the bottom, they've taken that off for the lower products and put an embossment on. So they still have it, but they took that metal accessory off. And then the same thing here on the neck. Now they've gone with a foil neck wrap. So they got the product launched. It's in the market and it's moving. I'll also say too, I was involved. I used to work for Jim Beam for many years. And I used to go to this property, the old Taylor Distillery. And when Will Arvin and Wes Murray, they had enough vision to buy this property. I think you saw it on some of the screens. It literally looked like something out of The Walking Dead. If you're familiar with that show, was completely overgrown, and the love and the care and the investment that they put in the property, I would highly recommend if you ever get to Kentucky and Millville, Kentucky. It's right between Frankfort and Versailles, and just a beautiful place to see. Go and spend the day there. Beautiful stream, and we are very pleased to be partnered with John and his team, and also work with Joy and her fine organization.
Joy, do you have any thoughts on that?
We do a lot of bespoke bottles, and we help folks. And I just say it is a journey. So it is a commitment. I think it's so well worth it because you can all close your eyes and be like, oh, I know what Jack Daniels looks like. I know what Jim Beam looks like. I know what Maker's Mark looks like. And all that equity is in the bottle. And, it does a lot of work for you on shelf, and behind bar. Don't get disheartened. There's going to be a lot of back and forth. But like great partners like Saver, like they're there to help and provide solutions. So we'll start off with a CAD drawing, and they might not like how it's going to release from the mold. So they're going to say, let's reduce this radii down by minimal amount, or they want to increase the knurling on the base here to help so that it helps release. There's a lot of back and forth. Be patient. It's so worth it. You get to hold this bottle and it's your baby, right? Like you can get to be so proud of it. But pick a partner that you feel comfortable with, right? Like it's going to be a long process. So trust your gut, and then trust someone that's going to lean into the process with you, right? And not start to devalue or chip away whatever creativity you've brought forward. Now, there's limitations in glass, so can't change some of that. But there are some suppliers that are just going to say no, and there's some suppliers that are going to really lean into your design wherever that came from. So take those first two, and then look at cost, and then look at time, because in the long run, the right partner, the right relationship is invaluable.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. John, I guess, going through those lessons of the brand launch, and now that the bottle's been on the shelves for about 5 or so years, could you tell us a little bit of what the perception and the reception have been, maybe with, what you've seen in the market and how sales have been?
So I think one of the best things that when transitioning from stock to custom, that you can ever have, and it doesn't matter if people are giving you positive feedback or negative feedback. I think just the fact that they're talking about your packaging in general is going to be a win. the fact that you are on the tip of a consumer's tongue, like that's absolutely what you want. And I think that's what we experienced a lot early on. With us being 2 years in this kind of like initial restoration release package, we had a lot of people that kind of like fell in love with it. And so there were a lot of feelings initially when we switched over to this. But I think it was very kind of like representative of the overall brand evolution. And I think like honestly looking and defining what success is today in, late August of 2025 is probably quite different than if you had asked what defining success was in 2023. I think everybody in this room here understands the challenges facing the beverage alcohol industry, right? Like we're not hiding any of that. But so I think like success today is having the opportunity to evolve. To be able to change, to be flexible, to be able to pivot your marketing strategy, your packaging strategy, your route to market, to be able to ultimately win. So, we're continuing to do that. And the final, the very last package, the bourbon one that Mike has there, I think this is probably the best example of that, where like Mike was saying, we needed to be able to find more profit with our existing package. When we were initially planning our bespoke glass and bringing that to life, great. You could have a 4-year-old and it could hit the shelf at $50 and you were going to sell it. Not the case today, right? Like we have to be competitive and we have to steal share from those major players in the industry. And we need to be able to have a bottle with enough a package, a whiskey in the market with enough margin in it for us to be able to in turn go back and invest in marketing and sales and all the other things that have to happen. So, I think one of our biggest learnings was talk to your ops department early on. They probably could have saved us like a lot of headache and a lot of challenges. So, one of the things you can never automate is applying that metal neckband. So in us removing the neckband, great. There's an automatic win in savings of labor, as well as the cost savings of that actual physical component. Same thing with that foot badge. That was incredibly hard to automate, so we found automatic savings. We're not losing the integrity of the package, but we're making ourselves a leaner, more agile, more competitive company. And that's what everybody in this room should be asking themselves. How do we go back to the drawing table? How do we make ourselves competitive? How do we steal share from those big boys? And so I think that to me is kind of like ultimately like what we're trying to achieve right now. And once again, it's having partners aligned who understand the larger market forces, who are seeing what other players in the industry are doing, and who can come to the table with creative solutions to be able to allow us to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. Joy, do you have any thoughts on the perception of brands launching in like this?
Yeah, I mean, I have a couple, but I would just say that sometimes when folks start out, you don't have massive marketing budgets, right? You just need your bottle to look better than the one to your left and the one to your right and be able to find it behind bar. And so we have a lot of folks that put all their money in the packaging. And then they streamline, year 5, year 6, when they really need to find that the growth. But if no one ever picks up your bottle, no one ever tastes your liquid, that's a problem. So you got to make your package desirable to be picked up. Now, one of the first things we'll ever ask you is, we'll also make sure to know, like, what are your COGS? And you wouldn't believe it. Some folks are like, we don't know. And it happens all the time. And some people are like, okay, exact down to the cent per bottle, which is great because that gives us some guardrails. I often joke like, hey, let the designers know what they have to play with in the sandbox. If we don't put any kind of guardrails on whoever you engage as your design agency, they will always give you a more expensive option than you want. They're designers, they're creative. So it's okay to give limitations. If they do their job right, they're going to provide solutions. And that's what you want. You want solutions to your problems. But again, you don't know them if you don't express what you need, they'll never know. Some initial things I would say, if you're starting out as a brand or if you're looking to repivot, these are just key questions. So what do you stand for? If you were to give me one line, it could be one word. If you have to waffle on for a while, I would say you don't know what your brand stands for. Take some time, whittle that down, get that sharp. If it's not passion, play within a white space. If you're passion-led and you're going to be that founder and you're going to be the tip of the spear, awesome, wonderful. If not, you need to play within a white space, and not just within a white space within the market, an edge within that white space. Ask yourself, what is my brand solving in the marketplace? Does the world need another gin? Probably not. That's okay, but make it a gin that the world needs, right? Constantly tell a brand story. We love to do that through packaging. We find every baby of ours looks and behaves differently. Castle & Key is one of my favorites. I think this is really important. Time is precious. Hire expertise. It's an investment, not an expense. Most of you, I have phone calls with folks all the time. They're spending their kids' college fund to fund their whiskey project. You get one chance to do it. Like, do it right. Take your time, make the right decisions, get to market quick, but take your time, do it right, hire the right people. It's worth it. And last, leave nothing to chance. Put it all in the bottle, get it out there. Don't do anything halfway. I think those were just like big high level what I would offer to you guys.
Mike, do you have any follow-up points for successful branding?
For some of you that are starting out, some of you that are taking existing brands, the more information you can give your glass supplier, like what you're going to put in the product, from day one. For example, here, there's a gin, there's a vodka. Those are going to be in the 80 proof range. But if you're down the road, you're putting up whiskey, you're putting up rye that's going to be cask strength or barrel strength. The bottle has to be designed to have adequate headspace between the top of the liquid and the bottom of the cork. If you leave one thing today when you leave this meeting, that's one of the most important things when you're considering a bottle, to make sure that bottle has appropriate headspace. Because you want your bottles to succeed. When you're starting out, your distribution might be in a single state area. But as your brand grows and it's going to California or it's going to New York, and truck drivers decide to spend the weekend in Las Vegas on Labor Day weekend, and your bottle's sitting on that truck and it's 120 degrees, you want your bottle designed for that headspace. So you're always going to ask that from day one is, what are you going to put in? Because that's going to eliminate a lot of grief for you. Because, next thing you know, you're hearing from your distributor, you're hearing from your sales staff out in the field, corks are popping. A customer's buying a car and they're going to the golf outing here in San Antonio on Saturday, and they put it in the trunk of their car and that cork pops and it's spilled all over their Jaguar or their Mercedes. Things like that. Packaging. We are a large decorator. Whether you decorate with a company like Saverglass or others, bottles can be decorated. It can really streamline your organization. Think like Grey Goose. That bottle is all decorated. You receive it 100% decorated, and all you have to do is cap it and fill it. Versus, a complex bottle like this, as John mentioned, putting the accessory on, putting the nameplate down at the base, the age statement. That adds a lot of labor. So you can get a bottle supplier can do as much as you want or as little as you want. You can sell you a stock bottle that you'll see out on the trade show floor here. And a lot of those bottles are designed for 80 to 90 proof. And if you know that going in, saying, hey, that bottle is going to react in the market, it's only designed for 80 to 90 proof, you're fine. But if you want to go down the road, if you're making the investment in the custom molds like Castle & Key did here, you want to have all those questions. You want to have a partner that is really going to dive in, so where you're successful.
Yeah, absolutely. And now we're going to have some time for some Q&A at the end, but I just wanted to ask the panel members if they had any final thoughts, just kind of wrap up this. So Joy, would you like to start off? Any final thoughts on this?
Oh, I guess I don't really have any final thoughts, but just thank you for your time and your attention. It's a real pleasure. And I think most of us will be available even after. If you want to have a more long-winded conversation, just come steal us.
Kevin.
Feel free to ask me all the things we did wrong. There's a long list of them, and I'm happy to try to save as much headache and tears as possible.
Stranger's got a coffee table book, and it's a brag book, and it's floating around. If you haven't seen it yet, please take a minute to look at it. And it's really a work of art. The designs they come up with, and you'd really be surprised. It's they're the creme de la creme of the design agencies out in the market. So it's very happy to be with you here today. Our whole team is up at the booth. We're here till tomorrow, so we'd love for you to stop by the booth and happy to answer any of your questions you may have.
Yeah, thank you. We are good at what we do, but we're not precious, and we work with anyone, and we just want to work with good people with good product and good briefs. So I'm happy to. I've been in the industry for a long time. Ask me any question. I'll lend you my time. I'll give you my card. So just wanted to.
Speaking of that, does the audience have any questions for the panel members?
We're making major investments within our organization, for sustainability. Use a lot of energy to make the bottles, so a lot of natural gas. We're making our furnaces, when we're reinvesting in the company, a furnace lasts anywhere from 5 to 7 years. So we're making those furnaces hybrid furnaces. They're using renewable energies. So think like wind, solar. So that's the big initiative. The other thing that we're doing, a lot of our bottles are, premium bottles like you see here. This is premium Flint, a lot of virgin material. It doesn't have the green tint to it. Saverglass has just launched commercial Flint. So we have a campaign with some key customers that customers of Joy's and mine, and you'll see in that book. And we've started running recycled cullet. So when you hold it up to the light, you'll see a little bit of a green tint. So that's driving savings on the glass. It's more sustainable for the future. Glass is the most infinitely recyclable material there is. The downside is it's very expensive to get it through that right recycling system. So some of you in some of the areas where you live, they might take the cardboard, they might take the PET, but they're not taking the glass in your recycling bin because there might not be an avenue to recycle the glass nearby. So that's a lot of our initiatives. And a lot of our competitors are doing the same thing. There's always going to be a market for premium Flint, but for example, if John's team came to us tomorrow and said, hey, we really want to make a sustainable push here on the bottle, we could offer another alternative.
And I'll add to that, I don't think you have to sacrifice. They're not mutually exclusive. You can have a beautifully designed, compelling package that tells a story and is sustainable. Part of our job is to get really aligned on your objectives. So we've had clients say, I want it as close to home. Like I want it only produced in North America. I had one person call in and say, COVID hit, and we realized that our 6-pack was for 11 different touch points. That's not sustainable. So it mainly comes down to where are you sourcing? What are their practices, right? And then lastly, I would say, lightweighting, unfortunately, the weight is the biggest component. And so a lot of our clients, we just redesigned Bacardi's Martini, and we did the redesign 10 years ago. Nothing wrong with it, but they have a global initiative to reduce their carbon footprint. So it's like, okay, we're going to pull glass out, but how do we still make it incredible on shelf, still compelling? And so I think that project turned out really well. There's a lot of ways to go about it. I think it's kind of like, I'll be quite frank, there's a lot of people that do it kind of half-hearted to win the check. And then there's some people that are really like, want to make sure that it's like, it's hitting every mark. So, a good design agency will help you through that process.
Are there any other questions?
Biggest thing would be a custom bespoke bottle that if, let's say we were working with your distillery, we would design a bottle with as much headspace as we can get.
Yeah.
Yeah. A lot of the bottles, like if you come up to our booth, our stock bottles are designed for 80 to 90 proof. So one option, custom bespoke, we can take a stock bottle. Let's say this is one of the stock bottles up on the booth that has a thin base. We do a product for Jim Beam called Baker's Bourbon and Legion. It's actually a stock bottle. We do a custom run of glass and we make the base thinner. So instead of 900 grams, we run 870 grams. So that gives the bottle more headspace. That's one option. The other option would be what you can do in your closure. If you have a wax closure, like a Maker's Mark, it's really going to hold that closure down. That's going to help you from popping a cork. Mm-hmm. The other thing we do is we have screw caps. So like a GPI, a lot of our stock bottles have a GPI finish, which is a screw cap like you would see on a bottle of Absolute vodka or Empress Gin. That could easily be done. If you had a cork, strip stamp's not going to give you as much resistance, but a shrink capsule that has an aluminum disc on the top with a seal, that's going to help hold the cork down better.
I would say with the bespoke bottle too, you can work. So another question we ask when we start the CAD process is, what are you filling it with? What's proof and what's your vacuity? Folks in Scotland have a 2.5% vacuity because it's so stinking cold, doesn't matter. But then you got folks in Australia that need like a 4.5. There are certain bottles too that can be quite forgiving due to the refraction up top here. So it actually does like an optical illusion where you actually feel like it's more filled than it is, which is a bonus because if you need to, so maybe you make a more flexible bottle with like a 4.5 or 5% vacuity, which is that headspace, but it will work both ways, right? So it doesn't feel like, oh, did someone take a swig out of this bottle? So you again, the right folks can help you solve creatively.
Some of the closure suppliers upstairs, bar tops, you'll see a bar top that's got like a keyhole fissure in the side. That's meant to help with headspace. The glass manufacturer, that's the last thing we want to see because it's cutting down on your sealing surface. But the reason for that little slot when you see those corks is when you push it down, you're letting some of the air expel out of the bottle. So instead of compressing air inside, you're minimizing that pressure in between the liquid. So that's something that can help on headspace also too.
Any other questions? Go ahead.
So a stock bottle, on a booth from us or many other vendors up there might be designed for 80 to 90 proof. But for a higher proof product, let's say this bottle right now is designed for 120. This is what when we met with John's team, that's what it came up with. So what we do is it's between the top of the liquid and the bottom of the cork. Whiskey expands when it heats up, and that's what's causing that pressure. So we'll take a bottle on design, and one of the challenges here, just being very transparent, and this comes up with other design agencies, they'll do a mock-up, and the fill level they're showing at the base of the neck, and we always go back and, but not Joy so much, but other suppliers, I say, hey guys, this isn't realistic.
Oh, our designers want to, and I say absolutely not, because it's a pain in the butt.
And we come back and say, hey,
apologize.
They call me Buzzkill Mike because I come in with reality and say, that fill level's got to be down here. So that's what we do. Did that answer your question? It's just determining the headspace between the top of the liquid and the bottom of the cork. So 5% is normally at a high side. Somebody like Jim Beam or Brown-Forman, Jack Daniels, they always want to be up in the 4.5% range between the cork and the liquid when they're designing a new bottle. And that makes it bulletproof because they're shipping all around the world.
Mm-hmm.
But some bottles, you'll see some things filled at different places and you're going, wow, how are they filling up that level? And it's not work. It wouldn't work in a heat situation.
But to answer, you can take glass out, right? And you can reduce, say, like they could reduce the base, right? And that would give you obviously more headspace. But what that's going to do is that's going to drop your fill line. And so that's not necessarily going to solve for the overall aesthetic. It's going to future-proof for you for distribution in hot markets. But then you're going to, some retailers will be like, it's not full, I don't want to take it in. So you might be solving one problem but creating another. And so it's got to think about all the components.
I have time for one more quick question if anybody has one.
Good question. I could show you a bottle up at the booth. So we can take the same mold and just run it with less glass and make the base thinner. It same OD dimensions. It just has less glass in the base.
As long as as long as it doesn't devalue your premium side.
It's like like this bottle here. Let's say Castle and Key wanted to come back and really take some cost out of their goods. The next step would be to make this base thinner.
Mm-hmm.
And what we would do in the redesign would be you're shrinking the bottle in a little bit because you have to displace all this glass here. If not, your fill level is going to be there. So the bottle's going to have to shrink in or it's going to come up taller. Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. And that's a good question too. It's like on 750s, sometimes you use the same blank mold, which is the gram weight. Let's say it's 900 grams, but you use it for a 700. And what they do, you'll see in the bottom of the bottle, they increase the punt or the push up. And the bottles are the same weight. They're the same outside dimensions. So let's say some of you're doing a bottle for US, but you're also doing a bottle for Europe and you want a 700 ml. Bottles run with the same change parts on your line. You're just using a punt in the base to displace that 50 mLs of liquid.
Thank you very much. I think we're out of time now. Just want to say thank you very much to our panel members and for all of you for attending. If you have any final questions, we'll be at booth 1409 the rest of today and tomorrow. So feel free to stop by and pick our brains. So thank you very much.
Thank you.